We went in for our first appointment. Unfortunately, there was no heartbeat, and so you're just blindsided. I think as any woman who like wants a baby, they're just like, what's going on? Like my body's meant to do this. I'm biologically put on this earth to create more humans. Being probably 5 years ago was a lot different, or even 3 years ago was so much more different than it is now. I think because we're in an AI era,
Mhm.
everyone's behavior has changed in the sense of they want it instant and they want it super personalized. If you can figure out like your brand foundation, your what I call your brand flag, which is essentially in marketing talk like your positioning statement, and what like your differentiating thing that makes you you and how it's perfect for your audience, then you have the core to then help you use AI to accelerate everything else.
Do you think that everyone needs a brand in 2026?
I think they do.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Busy Moms Get It Done. I am so excited today because I am pleased to welcome Rita Gunderson. And we've all heard how branding is important, especially in this age of AI and all, but she can discuss a little bit more about that later on. Rita is a mom of two, an entrepreneur, and a 9 to 5er. She is a branding expert, and I'm so excited to dive into today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining, Rita.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here with you.
So I wondered if you can start with your motherhood journey. Um,
Mhm,
and what was that process like? I know when we spoke offline, you mentioned, having a miscarriage. What
mhm.
is that whole process like? And when did you decide to be a mom?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I always knew I was gonna be a mom, but, when it came to, like, actually being, like, starting that process of becoming a mom, I had a little bit of hesitation. Like, I told
Mhm.
my husband, "I wanna be a wife first. Let us, like, get through the first year." And then when it came to, like, "Okay, we're gonna start trying," I was like, "Well, maybe not yet." I was very I'm very ambitious, and so I knew that being a mom meant the mother was going to have to be the one to kind of sacrifice their body and like stop their career for a certain amount of time. And so I had a couple of hesitations there, but I think, I don't know what clicked, but it just clicked for me that it wasn't so much like, oh, it's my responsibility to do this. It was more like a perspective change on, I get to do this. It's
Mhm.
something that you don't get to do that I have the honor of doing. So, and then once I made that decision, I was like, "Okay, now I want the baby in my arms." So, I like any ambitious woman, I was like, I'm very type A, so I started to just research, okay, how do I get myself into fertility shape?
Mhm.
And I did that for like 6 months, and, then I was like, "Okay, let's try," and we immediately got pregnant on our first try, and so we were just joyous. So when we went in for our first appointment, unfortunately, there was no heartbeat, and so, you're just blindsided. I think as, any woman who, like, wants a baby, they're just like, "What's going on?" Like, "My body's meant to do this. I'm biologically put on this earth to create more humans," and so to have that happen on the very first try was very, I don't know what the word is. I mean, I was in shock and just a heartache, but I think more so like then you second guess yourself, like, can I have babies
Like,
and all of that. So, I think once we did try again, which was it took a while to get to be able to try again, but it was probably like 9 months later, which so like we actually conceived around the time that that first baby would have been born.
wow.
Um, and, we got pregnant and it was just very much very anxiety ridden, to be honest. Unfortunately, I think when you start off with a miscarriage, you kind of have those thoughts in the back of your mind. But we were just so, I feel like, I don't know if other women who have, what we call rainbow babies, like have their rainbow baby, it's just like you just love them extra hard, and you put into perspective when things are rough. Like I had to nurse her like every 2 hours because she wasn't gaining weight, which made me so delirious because I wasn't getting sleep. But it just made it so worth it because you just wanted this healthy human in your life, and you got them.
No, I love that story because I can't imagine, I remember when I was pregnant, and it was like because it's the first time you don't know what to expect,
Mhm.
and so, like, I can imagine starting with that loss and then, like, going in. I feel like I used to tell people, I'm like, I took, like, I wouldn't say 10, but I took a lot of tests just to confirm within that
Right. Yeah, same here.
first Like
Yeah.
because you don't know, you're like, nothing feels different, and so, like, I took, like, maybe 5 to 10 tests to make
Mhm.
sure that I was really pregnant, so I can't imagine, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
You mentioned being ambitious, so when you were trying, what were you thinking in terms of career? Because you mentioned the shift
Mhm.
of, like, "Oh, I have to sacrifice to I get to do this," which I love that
Mhm.
statement of, like, we do get to, you know
Mhm.
have the ability to create to have life grow within us and be the vehicle for someone to come into this world and train them. It's such a blessing. So how did you kind of mirror that with your career and trying to figure out how that step was going to be?
I think it was just the experience of doing it. Like, I knew that I was going to be a mom, and I just knew that I was still very ambitious. Like, I remember a month before, like, I only took 3 months off
Mm,
before I went back to work, and so I remember like, maybe 2 weeks before, I was just on my phone, like, am I still on trend with, like, everything, making sure I didn't lose my touch? Um, and as you know, I've had 2 kids, and the 3 months off, like, looking back at it, I wish I could tell myself, like, "You're gonna be fine, like,
yeah,
you're not gonna get left behind, don't worry about it, like, you are probably never ever gonna take that much time off from work until you retire." So, like, with my 2nd baby, I was like, "I'm gonna really relish in this time because I'm not gonna get it again." So, yeah, I don't hindsight is always clear, so if, with my daughter, I'm gonna tell her, but, like, any other future woman who's super, super ambitious, I think just knowing that it's not forever,
mm.
and to just really, like, take in that time that with your babies because you're not gonna get it again, and it goes by so fast.
No, I agree. Um, I don't think I was that ambitious to be, like, checking in. I was checked out, fully checked out.
Mhm.
I wonder how you navigated your 9 to 5, and then how did you, step into the business side of trying to create a business for yourself?
Yeah, so that happened before I had babies,
Okay.
and it was kind of something that happened very seamlessly where I wasn't looking for business, people would just come to me for certain
Mhm.
things. And then I started a business just because, well, I'm doing work. Let me just start, creating stuff for myself in terms of like a brand identity and whatnot. Um, and it didn't start in what I do now. Like as a full-time worker, I'm a design director for a creative agency, and that's been my experience. Um, but what I was doing on the side was doing event design for weddings and whatnot. I mean, I remember there was one year I was invited to 10 weddings. I was in like 3 of them. And so it was, you're at that age where everyone's getting married. And so I had the design experience behind me, but I also had all the exposure to events. So, and I knew it wasn't going to compete with my 9 to 5. Like we have certain not what are they called? Non-compete clauses that we can't like really do anything that would be in competition with our day job. And so I knew it wouldn't compete, and I knew I was exercising my creativity in a different way.
Mhm.
Um and so that ended up after I had babies, I kind of took a break, and then it ended up morphing into more branding where that's a part of what I do in my day job, but it's not the whole thing. And I knew that it was a gray line into a non-compete. I didn't think it was competition, like, and I still don't because of the type of audience that I'm catering to. So, I think it just kind of flowed into something that was given to me, like, people were coming to me into something that I knew that I wanted to get more into because I didn't feel like I was fully utilizing all of my skills that I could help. Um, so it kind of morphed into that, and they kind of help each other hand in hand where everything that I learn from my business, I apply to my career and vice versa.
I wonder if you can describe that whole process, and for someone who's listening, like, you know, there might be something that someone's really good at, but, like, to
Mhm.
turn it into business, it might feel a little bit scary, you know, to
Yeah,
think, like, if I do this, you know, for free, you know, it's a hobby, but to turn it into business, it's like, "Oh, there's an expectation that I must
right.
be really, really good." How did you overcome that, and what would your advice be to moms who might be, like, looking into there's something that they're really good at, but they wanna turn it into more than, like, an hobby?
Yeah, I think and I've heard this as well, especially in my field where it's designed, so it's creative. It's really hard for people to kind of put their like a visceral acknowledgement on
Mm,
what's creative and like, "Oh, it's so easy for you, so you should just be
yeah.
able to do this."
Mhm.
Versus something that's like, "Oh, I can do your taxes," or something where it's very, very
Yeah,
concrete, and so, like, "I'm
yeah,
gonna pay you for this specific task."
yeah.
Um, I think, 1, you have to be able to, like I think you can try and test it out with other people, and where if you're getting the type of clientele where you're not even marketing it, and you're getting those results for people where they're so happy and you love what you do, then you start to, like, kinda see those trends, and then you start to maybe, "Let me charge a little bit here." And I think for me, that makes it easier where it's not putting so much pressure on yourself, like you mentioned, like, "Oh, no, I need to now be able to give people what they want because they're paying me." I think if you can ease into it where, like, you don't charge your first couple of clients, and then you start charging a little bit for that a little bit for it, and they probably will tell you things like, "Oh, man, I would have paid you even more for that." So I think when you hear those types of things as well, then you charge a little bit more to a point where you feel comfortable. I mean, I know I've heard so many time again and again where it's like, "You need to be charging more, you need to be charging more." And if it's not comfortable for you, I don't
Mm,
think that you should push yourself personally. You'll get there, and you will have to go out of your comfort zone in charging people because I think that's kind of like a self-worth issue
yeah.
more so. Um, but yeah, I do believe that like getting into that flow of being able to charge people in a way that feels comfortable for you, but also pushing yourself. It's a very fine line.
What was the process like? You mentioned building the business, starting it
Mhm,
out before you had kids. When you had kids, now you have a kid, you have a
mhm.
side hustle or a business, and then you also have, you know, your job. So, like,
Yeah,
how were you able to navigate all these 3 pieces, and what does a regular day look for you
yeah, that's a
when you
good question.
started versus, like, now, you know, since you're
Yeah.
doing it for so long?
I think just being very, very intentional with your time.
Yeah.
Um, when I was younger, I was very, very ambitious as well. I mean, I think I've always been ambitious, but like for example, when I was in high school, I was in all the advanced classes. I had sports. I had like the leadership class in early in the
Mhm.
morning, and I was playing two sports at a time. So if it was
That's a lot.
the school sport, yeah, if it was the school sport, then I was playing the off season sport of another. And so I had to balance a lot of my time, and I always had a planner with myself, like planning out every single moment. And I think I kind of pulled that into like my career. And before kids, it was a lot easier, obviously.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
this is what I'm gonna do, and this is what I did, right? Versus with kids, as you know, like
Yeah.
you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I think that's one of the bigger lessons that I learned in motherhood is like you gotta let go of that like control a little bit.
Mhm.
Like you can plan as much as possible. And to me, planning calms me down and it kind of gives me direction, but you gotta be able to pivot and go with the flow. So I think I like to plan my day as much as I can, knowing that I'm gonna have to be flexible with whatever. So for example, like yesterday, I was like, I really need to get stuff done. So I wake up super early, like around 4:30 to work out. And, that's my time. Like at 4:30 workout, I listen to like things that I can learn from, like if there's a course that I'm taking at the same time. And then I go, shower, get ready. And then I'm like, okay, I have like an hour to myself to work. And my daughter woke up extra early that day. So I, close my laptop up and hang out with her because I don't get to hang out with her like one on one as much.
Yeah,
She's in school and I have work.
yeah.
So, I think having those priorities too and understanding that you have to be okay with being able to pivot and be flexible and knowing your priorities as well.
No, I love that because I think that being okay with pivoting is the biggest
Mm.
thing you're going to learn, and
Oh,
I have
yes.
to learn that because kids are not going to be like, "I need this," and they need it right now, even though but you have to obviously teach them that there's a level of
Mhm.
waiting that happens, but being okay with your plans, like, falling apart and, like,
Yeah.
taking it step by step or slowing down, I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn.
Right.
It's okay,
Same
like
here. Yeah, same here, same here. I
that's
think I was very much like, "This is the way it's supposed to be," because that's how
yeah,
I taught myself, and I would
yeah,
get these, accolades from that, so it was kind of like a de-learning
mhm,
of that, and I think even in my, having my miscarriage, like, I did everything right,
mm,
and it still didn't happen, and it was just kind of like I think that was, like, lesson number 1. Kids aren't gonna come when you want them to come, and so just kind of like you mentioned, just being able to be flexible and pivoting and not, like, letting it eat you alive if it doesn't go according to plan.
yes, yeah. Um, can you talk a little bit more about your business and, it's all about branding, so what
Hmm.
exactly does that look like in this day and age?
Yeah, so I think branding probably 5 years ago was a lot different, or even 3 years ago was so much more different than it is now. I think because we're in an AI era,
Mhm,
everyone's behavior has changed in the
yeah,
sense of they want it instant and they want it super personalized.
mhm,
Um, and so branding in a sense, branding has a lot of facets to it, but I think branding in a sense is really identifying who you are and why you're different and why you're perfect for your client, right? Um, and it's able to you can recognize this is my brand from an instant, from the way they talk, from the colors they use, from any association, instantly that that's your brand. And to be able to differentiate yourself is huge. And I think like a couple of years ago, you would need a branding expert to really help you figure that out for yourself. And you could stand out, but maybe it was via like templates or whatnot. And then you had to alter those templates. But now you can create assets for yourself via AI
mhm,
and you can make it really, really fast. But now in the world of AI, like everything kind of looks the same. And even though you can create so many more things quickly, it's still now it's just a quicker way of looking like everyone else. So I
that's a
think
good thing to say. That's
mhm,
actually a really good quote.
yeah. So now I think what's truly important is really figuring out figuring out what I call like your brand world. Like how are you different? Like I call it like your mixed stack. Like what are the different things about yourself, your stories, your experience, your heritage, everything that make you you to truly stand out to that specific audience. Um, and if you can figure out like your brand foundation, your what I call your brand flag, which is essentially in marketing talk, like your positioning statement and what make like your differentiating thing that makes you you and how it's perfect for your audience, then you have the core to then help you use AI to accelerate everything else. But if without that core, I feel like you're just gonna sound like everyone else, look like everyone else, and that defeats the purpose of what branding is supposed to be. So that's really what I focus on with my business is truly helping women understand that part so that they can go, with the wind and create all the things for themselves with the use of AI.
Do you think that everyone needs a brand in 2026?
I think they do. I think,
Really?
I feel as if I think everyone does create a brand in 2026, regardless of if you know it or not.
Mm.
One of the things that I try to say, I'm half Mexican, so the word chismosa means gossiper in Spanish, and I'm always saying that your brand is gossiping about you.
Mm,
So essentially, like you may not know it, but if you put out a newsletter or you put out a social media post and it's saying one thing, but then you put out another social media post and it's saying another, or someone else is talking about your brand and you don't know what they're saying, like your brand essentially is always talking about you. So it's up to you to really either create that foundation for it and or to just keep an eye out on making sure that you're always saying the same thing, like most consistent thing, so people know who you are in an instant. Like they can say, "Oh, Rita does this," or "Esther does this," and you want to be able to have other people, because we don't believe what a person says anymore. We believe what other people say about them a lot more, right? That's why there's reviews and whatnot. So I think whether you know it or not, your brand, you are creating a brand, so you might as well want to be able to influence what it's saying about you.
I like that. I wonder though, like, I never asked on this, like, if I do not care about having a social media presence, right?
Mhm.
How is that brand different versus someone who does care about having
Yeah.
a social media presence?
I mean, I think so the way that I see it is like you have your core, so people know who you are, Esther, and what you stand for and what who you believe in, what you believe in, your values, all of that. That's the same thing for someone who has something that is more marketing visible, like a social media platform. So when we talk to Esther, when we like listen to your podcasts, if you have a newsletter or whatnot, we know who you are and we know what you're all about. If somebody has a social media feed and they're visible um, through aesthetics and design, we know what they're talking about. Like, it doesn't matter how you, what's the word, like execute it and how people see it in the in the real world. It's just a matter of understanding kind of your positioning and how you exude yourself, whether that be through a podcast, through verbal talk, or whether that be through visuals on your website or your social media. It's truly like ex, ex what's the word? Like kind of like saying how what your brand stands for and what your brand, the big idea behind your brand. It just doesn't matter how you execute it. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I wonder though, what about AI makes the brand a little bit different in this day and age?
Uh-huh. Oh my God, so many things. Um, so one, I feel like people unfortunately are relying on AI for a lot of their thinking.
Mm,
Um, and what AI does, it essentially just scrapes the internet for what's already there and
yeah.
will regurgitate something back to you. So you're essentially just copying everybody else. And where I feel like, and most branding experts will say this, you need to find out how you're different and how that's relevant to your audience. So if you can figure that out, then you can kind of guide AI so that it can help you create things quickly, but it's based in who you are versus like, let me just ask a really random question and it's going to scrape the internet and give me a very generic answer. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I
Okay.
mean, I'm asking because I'm like, well, there is an aspect of copy and paste, and a lot of people do that. But there
Hmm.
is also an aspect to hear about thinking models, and so
Hmm.
like if you are in the branding space, you kind of feel like it's kind of learning your style, your speak,
Hmm.
right? And so,
Yeah.
what way do you leverage that, so to speak? If I'm trying to create a personal brand, or I'm trying to create my business brand, do I just how do I make sure I'm not regurgitating what it's saying?
Yeah. I think that's like kind of going through, like, I was just going through my whole program that I'm creating. And it's kind of, you kind of have to look at one, like that big statement of like what you stand for and
Mm,
like your big idea. And then going through just like your marketing messaging and any type of messaging that you have and just seeing like what feels like me, what feels like it looks like it's something that anybody else could say. Like if you look at your messaging and you see it and you said, okay, that can be tied to any person in my industry, or is that tied to only me? Like people will see that and they'll think that's only Esther or that's only Rita. So I think that's kind of one step that you can take. But I think having it like the way that I see it, the way that I've kind of visualized it, it's in like these concentric circles where like who you are and your audience is in the center.
mm.
And then everything else is dependent on that. So if you have messaging and you have your marketing, it's all dependent on that. If something changes in your core, then everything else changes. And then if you want to change something on the outside where it's like your website, you have to make sure it's aligned to that core. And AI can only amplify what's already in your core if you want it to stay totally you and not something super generic.
Does my then the question I kinda had, because we're talking about audience and values,
Mhm.
what informs all of that? Does my brand inform my audience, or does my audience, like, help me shape my brand?
Mhm.
Or what is the what in what's what
I
in
think it's like a two-prong up like, the way that I see it, I'm very visual, sorry, so I'm gonna be using my hands.
Oh,
Like, it's like well, it's kind of like 4, the way that I have, like, the core, it's like who you are, like I mentioned, the mixed stack of, like, all those different things that make up you, who your audience is, so those are the 2 big ones, right? So, like, this is who I am, but this is how my audience likes to be talked to. This is what my audience pain points are. So we
mm,
really have to find that, like, if you were to do the Venn diagram, like, where's that middle ground? And then the other 2 things are like competitive analysis. I know it sounds very like
it's on.
marketing, but essentially you're looking at like, what are they doing, your competition? Because we don't want to do that. Like, you're
Mhm.
essentially seeing those gaps. Like, what can we do that's different, that's aligned to myself? Like, oh, they're not doing this, and I'm really good at that. Let me highlight that. Um, and then the last thing is relevancy. So, like, what's relevant right now? Like, if you were to do something like, I'm just going to create these static PDFs versus people can create like very personalized AI that's really quick. Um, just having that knowledge of what's relevant to your audience and the world right now. So I don't know if that answered your question of like what informs what, but I think it's having that four-pronged approach.
If I were to start a business, or am looking to start a business, or would I go first with the personal brand, or would I start the business first and then focus on the personal brand later?
I think it depends on what your business is. I know there's a lot of service-based businesses and the person is kind of the face of the brand.
Mm.
Um, And I think it depends on the industry too. But like, specifically for me, you're going to be working with me. So I think in a way, I didn't want my brand to be like, I didn't want to be the face of my brand, but people are hiring me because of my knowledge, because of my experience, because of the way that I speak, and because of the way that they like how I work. When I chose a marketing or not a marketing, like a business coach to work with, I didn't choose her because, oh, she had really great content. Like, I think
Yeah.
there were like 3 people that I was choosing from, and one of them was a man, and I was like, "Okay, I wanna spend my money on women." So, unfortunately, he was out he's smart, like, I love his
Yeah.
work. And
Yeah.
then it was between 2 other women-focused brands, and one of them was a mom of 4, and the other ones weren't, and I was like, "Okay, I feel like I aligned with her a lot more." So, it wasn't necessarily like even though her brand was not called her name, I aligned with her as a person. And I think in a way, a personal brand and a business brand are kind of a little bit fuzzy right now, especially if you are like the face and you're kind of selling your own IP and your brain to people.
No, I like that. I think that there is that complexity that exists now
Mhm.
that doesn't exist before,
Yeah.
because I with AI, there is that element of it needs to be more personable, right? I need
Mhm.
to know that there's a person behind us, right? And so
Yes.
you connect with someone, whether they're a mom or a woman, it's more of that there is that level of humanity that we are all seeking, that because of
Yes.
AI that perhaps wasn't there before, whereas we just trusted before AI, we are all human.
Mhm.
And now there's like, I need to know. And
Yeah,
so
that's very
with
true.
you're being
Mhm.
with someone who seems more personable. Um, I wanted to ask if you talked about, the mom who kind of that you veered towards, but for your mom clients, what would you say is one of the mistakes that you're hearing when you're training them for creating a brand?
I think the biggest thing is that they kinda looks to the outside.
Mm,
Uh, Again, so I'm thinking, like, in my framework, they'll look at, like, trends or they'll look at, like, a competitor and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna do what they did because they had success," instead of kinda looking from the inside out, like, "Would this be relevant to my company? Would this be relevant to how I work? Would this be relevant to my audience?" So I think that's the biggest mistake is looking on the outside for how they should work when they should be mostly focused on, like, themselves and what's relevant to them and to their audience.
Nice. So I wonder if we often hear about moms who lose, themselves in the workplace. What
Uh-huh.
specific skills has raising two kids given you that you would say makes you more an effective entrepreneur? Obviously we talked about before being able to let things be, let things
Uh-huh.
be and kind of pivot because of the kids. But what
Yeah.
else would you say have you learned since having kids that has helped you entrepreneur in your 9 to 5 journey?
I mean, I think, yeah, the flexibility, but also just kind of being able to make decisions quicker on, like, whatever I'm doing, like, even I think it's not has to do with kids, but on, like, earlier this week, my husband was like, "I have a doctor's appointment at 7 AM," and it was, like, the next morning, and I was like, "Okay," and so, I had to be able to be like, "Okay," I had to create that boundary with, like, before I wouldn't be able to do that with my job. Like,
Mhm.
I was just like, I need to be able to pour myself into my job for them to find my worth. And I think I've learned that over time that it's okay if you pull away a little bit to handle what's your priority, which is my family. And your job will still be there. They won't think that you're, you know, not responsible. They know that, like, this is your husband. He had this certain operation that he needed to get done. Like, they're not going to do that. So I think kind of feeling comfortable in not only like having those boundaries and enforcing those boundaries, um, knowing your priorities, which for moms is going to be their family.
Yeah. Um, there is this thing that when you're a woman that you kind of feel and a mom, sometimes you feel like you're missing out. And I think it's not only I
Mm-hmm.
feel like on either side. This is why I call this busy moms because like if you're mom working mom, you feel like you're missing out. If you're a bit
Hmm.
upstairs, you feel like you're missing out. Um so what is the first step would you say like maybe if I'm trying to do everything at once to making sure that you don't allow that feeling to dominate you?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that, because I get that feeling,
Mm,
especially as a working mom, like seeing a lot of my friends who are stay-at-home moms being able to go to, like, their kids' events and,
yeah.
like, just being, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I couldn't do that." But, I think kinda giving yourself grace over it and knowing that there's certain, I guess, for lack of a better term, like, seasons that you're gonna have. Like, if I'm really busy with work right now, I probably can't go to a certain event for my kids' school. But, I mean, there's other times where, like, work is a little bit slow, and so I'm able to, like, I could chaperone, a field trip or whatnot. And I think kinda choosing jobs, like, for me, like, I've chosen jobs that have allowed for flexibility. Um, before I had kids, I had what I called a diamond job. I've named it a diamond job only
The
because
diamond oh.
it's, like, so much pressure you're in that
Oh,
you become a diamond afterward because you up level so fast.
okay.
Um, but you can't stay there for very long because 'cause it'll squish you because 'cause you're under all that pressure.
Wow.
So, I had that before kids, and that taught me so much, and I was able to up level so quickly in my career. Um, but, now that I have kids, I'm choosing jobs that I know will provide and allow me to have that flexibility, so I can still go to my kids' events. I might have a little bit of, like, work guilt, or if I'm at a work thing and I can't be with my kids, I might have a little bit of like mom guilt. But I think just having those priorities set and knowing that I made the decision to be in a role that may not be like what I would have had if I had continued my career up in Silicon Valley, which is like around like an hour north of us. Um, but I made that decision so that I could be with my family, and I'm happy with that decision because I can be in both places at once for lack of, not exactly, but, like, I can give a lot to each one without it fit like that guilt kinda overwhelming me.
Yeah, I would say that what you said there about, knowing your values is really
Uh-huh.
important because I think that it is kind of a give and take, unfortunately for us women.
Mhm.
It is a give and take, like, there are times where you would be given a lot to your job, like, I had
Yeah.
that this Tuesday where I was my daughter's birthday was on Wednesday, and I'm like,
Mm-mm.
On Tuesday, I'm gonna focus on my work." I literally cannot like, I had to we went outside, blah, 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 but my kids are with me at home most of the time, but I
Uh-huh.
was like, "I'm working, you can play, blah, blah, blah," but I'm fully focused. And then there are times where it is slow and it's like we're all just dilly-dallying. I'm on my computer,
Yeah.
there's nothing really going on,
Yeah.
So I think we have to be, uh, okay with the fact that we this is and we all live different lives, I guess.
Mhm.
So whoever's listening, like, we live different lives. Your life is not gonna be
Mhm.
like the next person's life. We and my life is not gonna be like your life. So that
Yeah.
that is that. So final question, Rita, is like with 2 children and you have
Mhm.
a business and you're 9 to 5, what is one non-negotiable filter for what for deciding what gets you energy?
What gets my energy? I mean, I think my priorities, like I mentioned a lot, is always been my family. Like I can set out to plan a full day, but if thing like my we just got over being so sick for
Mm,
like months. And so just being okay with knowing that like things will be fine. Like it's just this one time. And just kind of, I guess a filter for the day. What was that non-negotiable filter? Yeah, my family, I guess, is just knowing that they're my priority, and I think I've seen a lot of loss in my life as well.
mm,
So, like, that really put a lot of perspective into my life. Like, we could have lived in in Silicon Valley, and we could have these, like, big dreams and stuff, but for us, it's like we wanna be where our family is. We've as a family have experienced so much loss that in the end what truly matters is our family and friends, and so we want to be able to still be as ambitious as we can be with still staying true to our values of being like having family and friends close to us, and having those moments and memories built because and essentially in the end no one's going to care if I like did all these ambitious career things. They're just gonna care about how I made them feel and how I helped my kids. My daughter's probably gonna remember how I went to her field trip versus like, "Oh, mom, you're now the creative director." Like, she's not gonna care about my title, right? So I think that's kind of a filter, I guess, for me.
no, I love that. Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you for your
Yeah, of
time.
course.
I learned a lot. I wonder if anyone's looking to reach out, where can they reach out to you?
I mean, my email for right now, but I do have a program going on. Is it okay if I just give
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
email? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's on a site called buildbrandworlds.figma.site. So it's kind of long, but
I'll put
I
in
can
the
give you all the stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you, Rita. Thank you to anyone who is listening, and please feel free to reach out to Rita, and
Yeah.
we'll see you next time on Busy Moms Get It Done.
Thank you.